Oh, hey, welcome back. Right, I left it where I had a train ticket to go to my mother's, but I won't proceed from there. I just want to go back a bit to in life and sort of tell you what really every day, apart from the chores and stuff like that, um, how everybody else or how I behaved and that sort of thing. In school, as I say, I was registered in school in grade one after my father kidnapped me. And I was very much a child from what I remember. Everything was done for me and I was taken to school and, that kind of thing. Apart from the fact that that's also when my sexual abuse started. Now, when I was back at my grandmother's over the years, because I always wanted to behave so well, is that I was always very obedient to everybody else, all the adults. I was always the one to open the doors for the adults. I was always the one to offer to carry things for the adults. And I also talked about my great-grandmother being the only person I freely called mother. I called her mama. And her husband, Makandako, I called her Danda. So these are the two people who I actually called mother and father, or mom and dad. And as far as I remember from how it feels to actually love someone, that is where it stemmed from. And that is where I learned that, you have to do things for your child, which are, get them cleaned, get their clothes washed, to make sure they're presentable. It was your responsibility. One of the things I also picked up from there was the fact that when I was in bed with my great-grandmother, that snuggle feeling that, because we didn't have pajamas. So we just slept naked. And the feeling of her skin to my skin, it was a feeling indescribable that I so valued, that I so loved. And it was nothing like anything I've ever experienced. So I can imagine those who are touchy-feely with their parents, that is perhaps how they feel. But for me, that kind of touchy-feely feeling, after, with the, I'll tell you again, because I lost my great-grandmother when I was 15. And but before that, lots of stuff has happened, which I will tell you eventually. So everything sort of seemed to be distorted because, one, I lost that touchy-feely with my great-grandmother when I went to live with my mother. But also in between, I was sort of becoming independent. So I had my own little hut that I built by myself, and I was sharing with my auntie Josephine. So when I look back, I'm thinking I was still quite very young. So that actually has distorted what kind of touchy-feely I give to my children. Again, I'll tell you a lot more about that, later on. That is what I think now, that I think this is where this feeling about I can't touch them, I can't do this with them, I can't be like this with them, because it might come out into something else. And another thing is that I moved from one culture to another culture where I have learned certain things that weren't there in the previous culture. I was sexually abused from the age of 4, but I was called a whore. And no adult came to my aid because as far as everybody was concerned, it was my doing. But I've come to this country where if an adult or whatever age person has sexual relations with a 4-year-old, that is pedophilia, sexual offense, that is actually, punishment in prison. And, well, from what I know now, the prisoners themselves will not take kindly to that kind of a person. They will have a rough time in prison. So I didn't have all these kind of thought processes. So I was just So when I came to learn that, an inappropriate touching of a child and that kind of thing, I didn't know what it looked like. So does it mean that if I'm in bed with my child, just being touchy-feely like that, just sleeping, having skin-to-skin body and just that comfort, is that part of inappropriate touching? So it got very distorted, and I struggled very much to do that with my kids. So anyway, in terms of survival, when I was at my grandmother's, on a daily basis, when certain things happened, say someone died in the village, I was always the only of the youngsters who would, as I say to you, I used to make maheu, who would make extra maheu for the mourners. When there's a funeral, people tend to, the way people used to do it over there is that everybody comes from all neighboring villages and their families and relatives, and everybody sleeps outside. So what happens if someone dies today? That body will be buried. It depends what time of day they die. That body will be buried on the same day because it's very hot there and the body can start decomposing. Failure to that, if they're waiting for someone to come from the towns or the cities and they know they're going to be there the next day, then they wait for that next day until that person gets there. And so that is, once the person is buried, people, they stay at that person's house, sleeping outside, eating together, crying together, and that kind of thing. They stay there for about 7 days. And in that 7 days, they need food, they need breakfast, so I used to make extra maheu every night. And in the morning, before I go to school, I woke up extra early and warmed up this maheu, warmed up water, and I'll take the warm water to the mourners, a bowl of warm water to the men, because the men and the women, they sat separately, and a bowl of warm water and maheu to the women. And once I've done that, I will greet them, shaking shaking hands with each and every one of them as they are sitting down. And I did that all the time, whenever there was something in the village that needed community involvement, I was the one that was doing that. And I started that from a very early age. Now, I'm not sure whether this is partly why I never had any friends. The fact that I don't get engaged in after work parties and that kind of thing, it's not a new thing. It's something that's come a long way. Back in the village, there was always someone who had a friend. There was a cliqueness between people, and they would be friends. But I wasn't allowed. If I happened to see them and I tried to join in, they would just huddle together or hold each other and walk away, and not involve me. So that was the thing, and I got used to it. So I didn't bother in the end. So maybe that's where it's coming from, do-gooder. People don't like do-gooders because I think that's how they saw me. And at school, it was again the same thing. I was in lower primary when I first started. I was only a very young child, obviously. I was the youngest in my class. And they used to look at me again like an odd thing. And as I say, my normality was distorted because I think where I should have been given compliment, I was ridiculed and jeered at, and that kind of thing. When I was young, especially in the winter of 1971, when it was very cold, from my father's, when I was coming from my father's, I had nice warm clothes that no one else had in my class. I had nice warm woolly jumper. I had a beanie. I had socks. I had shoes. Nobody else did. I had gloves. Nobody else did. And when I was at my grandmother's, obviously when I go there, I don't take the clothes from my father's because I was being kidnapped as well back at 2. When I go there, my grandmother she loved crochet. So she had crocheted some gloves and a woolly hat for me. And again, at my grandmother's, I had socks, I had shoes. And sometimes the socks and shoes that I've taken with me that I'm wearing on the uniform, I'll be using those. So I was perhaps the only one that had warmth. I was the only one that looked different. So every morning, what happened at school is every morning, when you arrive at school, you'll find that about 30 yards from the school grounds, there's a prefect standing waiting for the latecomers. And if you're late, they write your name down in their little book. And on a Friday, Wednesdays and Friday, they go in the middle of what we call the parade. It was a circle, and in the middle was a pole with a flag, and everybody came in and they stood around this circle, and the teacher will be going around looking at everybody's hygiene, basically, if they brushed their teeth properly. And of course, even if nobody had a toothbrush, we had certain kind of shrubs and sticks from certain trees that you could use to brush your teeth. And this particular tree, you could use the stick, you chew it a bit, and then you brush your teeth with it. And the leaves, you use that like a toothpaste. Once you finish brushing, you chewed the leaves, and they just made the gums much more pinkier and the teeth much more whiter. So, the teacher could see that you've done that, and, you had oh yeah, you're fine, you're good. And they checked out your nails, if your nails had dirt, and if they were cut, or if they were too long, or whatever. If not, you got a smack on with a duster, knuckle duster, on your knuckles. And they checked your hair, if you combed your hair, and they checked if you had head lice, and they could see the little white eggs. If you did have that, they would go around with the scissors and cut your hair, not sort of a line in the middle all the way from front to back, and then another line from ear to ear, side to side, sort of thing, so like a cross. And you can't go walking around like that. Everybody will laugh at you. So when you get home, your parents have to find some kind of scissors or a razor blade to cut your hair off. And you will be in trouble if you turned up at school the next day with hair like that, once they've done that. So you had to present on the parade with bare hands, with your bare head. And but I would go there standing with my gloves on, with my woolly hat on, and my scarf. I had a scarf with my scarf on. And everybody would be laughing at me because it was a very odd thing. It's like, where's this Martian come from? And what's all this she's wrapped in? Because not many people have seen it. And the teacher will say to me, will look at me and will say, it's okay, go past me. And again, it was like I was having favors of everybody, of all the grown-ups. So everybody else then hated me. There was these girls from across the river, and they would gang up to just torment me. And from then, for a long, long time, I don't remember having the confidence to look back and say, back off. I was always intimidated. I was always very shy. I was always no confidence whatsoever. I just wanted the whole world to swallow me. They really got their way, and they would laugh when they see me cowering. And when I fell ill, when I went back to school, because before I left, I was a prefect, and only certain people are chosen to be prefects, and there's a new lot of prefects chosen every year. So every January when school starts for the new academic year, there's some prefects have been dropped out, some prefects have been chosen. But I was the one that from grade 5 all the way through to grade 7, I remained a prefect. Even if I missed the 2 years, when I went back, I was still told you're still a prefect. And when I went back, actually, although I went back in the September, I was given the head girl position. So it was myself and this boy Maxwell Monga. He was the head boy, I was the head girl, and oh my goodness, I'm laughing because I think Maxwell had a soft spot for me. And we used to get water from the river, but this particular time the government had installed taps, and we had a tap at the back of the grade 7 class, and we were inspecting the work that those who we've given punishment for whatever purpose, maybe making noise in class, maybe being late for school, maybe not looking presentable, clean, because every Wednesday and Friday it was only that's when the teachers did the parade, checked everybody. But otherwise, all the other days it was the head girl and the head boy doing the checking. So when we found people who didn't look clean, who didn't present well enough or whatever, we wrote their names down and we punished them on the Friday. And it would be perhaps to mow the grass around the school lawn. And we didn't have a lawnmower, so it was something you use with a sickle or I can't remember what it was called now, that they used to make like a blade, and you swing it side to side to make sure that you're cutting the grass low. And the boys did that, and the girls would use a sickle. Or sometimes what we'd do is, because I think every other year we would have new pit latrines done at the school, then we need grass to touch the roof. We would send the girls to go and find the grass, to cut the grass and bring the grass. This they had to go out in the bushes and bring the grass for touching. And so we used to do that, and we used to have to wait for them to come back, and we would inspect them. And at this time, everybody now was the last one. I think we were waiting at the back of the school by where the taps were. I wanted to have a drink of water, so I had a drink of water, and I think he had a drink of water, and we stood, and he kissed me. I think he remembers that kiss even up today. And yeah, that was, I guess, my first kiss. But although having said that, I didn't have just the one admirer. I had other admirers. I didn't actually quite know what that was about. Does that mean this person is the one that's going to be my husband? I had no understanding, and no one ever tells you that actually boys will want to go out with you, and this is what it means. And of course, we didn't do the going out like you do here, and we didn't call it going out. It was a bit like courtship. We called it like a courtship. And that basically, what it involved after school, the boy that actually fancies you will either write you a note or something like that and say, I'll walk you home today. And, they will walk whatever distance to your home. And when they get about a mile from your home, they walk back to go to theirs, which is probably another 10 miles the other direction from the school. So there was boys that did that walked with me like that on a few occasions. Was Ronald Mtakatala. He did that. But then this Ronald Mtakatala, it didn't turn out right in the end, because he raped me, and that was that was not good. And then there was Buxton. Buxton Simabo, he was the son to our headmaster. But you see, because of my shyness, because of my insecurities, I didn't know how to present. I didn't know what was expected of me. So I would walk with my head down. We will walk for distances for a long time, I mean, we're talking 8 miles walking together, and without a word. Without a word. I wouldn't say a word. And back in the village, there wasn't anyone. I don't remember anyone showing any kind of interest. And apart from those who would come in at night to rape me or, get egged on to go come and rape me, that sort of thing. That was a different experience altogether. Yeah, so that was it. I was much a loner, much a very quiet person. I had no clue what anything meant. I had no clue how I was supposed to behave in any way, shape or form. The only place I was comfortable is if I was doing something for the grown-ups and I was getting the compliments that I was a good girl. That was the only thing. And I suppose I have then failed to see a childhood developmental challenges that a child can present, because I never presented it, because I never saw it. I never understood why they're doing it. And some of it, my grandmother's interpretation, I suppose she also didn't know actually. Interpretation is, what do you expect when parents don't give their children such and such or such and such? Or what do you expect if children don't whip their kids? Kids who are not whipped, they become so unruly because they get away with everything. But I mean, now I know that there was a lot more that other parents did for their kids. They showed love that I never saw the example of, than others, because I'm thinking, oh, you're doing that. How did you learn that? I mean, one of the things I actually found out is when I adopted my brother's kids, and they came to give me a kiss goodnight, and I thought to myself, where did you learn that? So this actually goes on in my mother's house, because my mother, after she left the village, she didn't just finish school in primary school. She actually also went to boarding school, and she then went to police academy, and then she interacted and mixed up with different families. She learned all sorts of different things from others. I remained cocooned in the culture and way of being from the village. And if my mother had behaved to me the way she had behaved to all my other siblings, I would have been a lot more confident in everyday life than what I have been. I would have been a lot more confident in relationships with other people and what it meant and how I was supposed to behave in those relationships. But I was constantly thinking, because I know nothing, because I don't know how this and such works, I'm going to be doing something that will create more problem for me. So the thing I know very well is that a child needs routine, a child needs to be fed, a child needs to be clean, a child needs to be hugged. So I thought, if you're sitting cuddling up on the settee in the evening or whatever time, if at the weekend with your children watching TV, I thought that was sufficient. But obviously that wasn't. I thought if you're taking your children on holidays and playing together, I thought that was sufficient. But obviously it wasn't, because I made sure my children lacked nothing. But that wasn't sufficient. There was something I missed. And I think, was it the eye contact? I couldn't afford them. Was it the eye contact that, missed out? That is what creates a spiritual bond that is unbreakable. I don't know. Because it's not something I have terribly badly done. It's something I haven't done, I think. Although, I would tell you a bit more. I have used my grandmother's methods of chastising, and I suppose, like everybody else, you tell yourself, I'm never going to do that to my kids unless it was such and such. Because my grandmother would whip you as a deterrent. But I thought it had to be something that it was clearly wrong. And I have actually not just resorted to a whipping, but I have spoken to them about it. And I have said that's not a good thing, because this is what happens with it. If they repeat it and they keep repeating it, third time lucky, fourth time, then I will whip. If that is what's going to make you shiver when you come to do this, then that's what you're going to get. So I didn't do it lightly. It wasn't something I just willy-nilly did it. And nobody can say they've been whipped so many different times by me. It would have always been just that once. And I thought to myself, I suppose once should be enough, because if they do something wrong and I say it, they should just remember that and not do it again. And not do whatever it is that they're doing at that particular time. That last time I did something wrong, my mother said this and said this so many different times, and then she had enough and I got the whip. So nobody can say, I had more than one whip. There was such and such a time that she whipped me like this, and so many times the other time. Whoever I had whipped would be just the once, and that would have been it. And that would have been after so many times of warnings about whatever it is that they'd done, and telling them that's not right because these are the consequences, and they still paid no notice. So, in a nutshell, basically that is how some of the stuff have been like. I'm going to leave it there. It's gone to 26 minutes. And before I carry on from where I left on about schooling and my mother, again, I'll do another recording, and I'll tell you about entertainment in the village. Okay. All right. Thanks.